Okay.
On the record, it's later with that.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm calling to order the Board of Commissioners in our Tuesday admin meeting. It is January 24th, 1 o'clock. We have the full board, Commissioners Hensley, Minty, and myself, Commissioner Root. First one, minutes from last meeting.
They look good.
All right, so those are good, and we're going to skip around in the agenda a little bit before we do the reclass stuff. And
Skipping around to what?
we're going to go down. I think we're just going to take that last because
4-2.
and Amanda always gets to go first, and today she gets to go last.
4-2.
Both of 4, 2, and 3. We're going to move those to the end. So we're going to take Vicki Knoll, Finance.
We're out of order. I was gonna come late.
Glad you didn't. Oh, my favorite topic.
Internal service allocation.
Yay, us!
Woo. So, I reduced the internal service budget, kind of small, to 3% from the current year's amended budget. I think that's what you asked me to do. The numbers that I talked about last week were in relation to last year's allocated spreadsheet, not in relation to the amended budget of the current fiscal year. So changing the transfer to all the internal service funds to 3% was pretty much all that was done. 3% of what this year's budget is.
The amended budget.
Mhm.
Got it.
Anybody have anything? This looks
Save my
better?
fight for another day.
Perfect. All right. Good.
No, I mean, let's put a scanner on the bathroom and start charging everybody for that.
What
The
kind of-
bathroom doesn't have its own department.
Yeah. That would fall under maintenance.
And on facility services, I removed the bowling alley or the
Perfect.
South 6th Street property. And we, Molly reduced the janitorial fees from that new formula to the old formula, but added like a cost of living increase.
Perfect.
The question remains, however, she did call me this morning. She has a $1,600 gas bill and a $200 electric bill for the South 6th Street building.
Really?
And if it's not on our facility maintenance agreement, who's paying for these bills? I'm assuming general fund, but
Mhm.
we're gonna, okay.
Until we get a firm plan, I think that we just need to do that and track it. And then once it either goes to fairgrounds or to, if it actually does go to the district or whatever, then we can do some accounting.
Vicki, what were the amounts again?
$1,600 for gas and $200 for electric. But hopefully she'll text me if
Do we
I'm
know
wrong.
why? I mean,
Why
it's
what?
my understanding everything's shut off to that thing.
Well, I'm sure it's not shut off, but it's low, I would think. But still,
We'll
gas
make sure
is
the pipes don't freeze.
my personal gas bill, I don't know about anybody else, but has like 60% increase this winter from last winter.
Yeah,
And that's
it's a pretty big
that's a
increase.
big building, so it doesn't surprise me 1,600 is,
Okay.
even at it being really low.
Okay.
But if you guys are good with that, just kind of tracking it till we find it in place, would be great.
So that dropped the increase to 206,000 from last year,
That is
from 400 and something, I think.
much better.
Okay, and then I forgot to talk about this one last time. This is the general insurance liability, and this is indicative of basically 3 things. One thing is the cyber, what do you call it? Jessica?
It's cyber liability insurance.
Okay, so the cyber liability insurance is increased $37,000. So you see on risk management line, it's about a fourth of the way down the page. The change to risk management's $35,000. The rest of the departments are mostly their liability change is a negative, so their costs are going down, except for the general fund because of the building that we bought and a couple buildings that we bought. And veterans bought a van, so theirs went up some, and then what was the other big one?
Doing a little guessing because there's no departments on this unless you know all the accounting numbers.
I do, actually.
I know.
Which one?
We can't.
You know all these numbers? Holy cow.
Yeah, that's.
I'm sorry, I should have left the department. Which one are you looking at?
It don't matter. I'm just saying.
Well, if you see the $35,000 change,
That
that's
one I
risk.
saw.
So that one's an increase of $35,000. But our total increase for all departments is 11.
Right.
Wow, that's pretty good.
It's
Yep.
actually not terrible.
Mhm.
Okay.
The sheriffs went down a lot because their jail beds, or not their jail, almost all of their categories were less this year.
Which is the first time in.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Jinx it.
Never mind.
Jinx it.
Okay.
Good job.
Can I make one comment?
No. Yes, of course.
Jessica Chastain, IT Director. I think maybe it's probably a little late to get it started for this next fiscal year, but possibly the following year, we could possibly talk about other strategies for cyber liability insurance. Insurance companies are generally getting out of the cyber liability business because the claims are a lot more than what they originally thought when they started underwriting them.
Because people started getting checks. They started getting paid
Right.
for that criminal behavior.
So, and they're also, the underwriting of them now is very, very limited on what they'll cover and under what circumstances they'll cover. So even if we had adequate insurance, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to pay. The insurance company will pay for what's going on. So I think maybe, like I said, maybe a little late for this fiscal year, but that's coming up. But the next fiscal year, we may want to have some discussions about maybe either self-insuring and putting money aside for knock-on
And that's an ongoing conversation that is happening at CIS right now. You'll see it. Well, you probably heard that same spiel just this last
Yeah, and
just college.
Oh, I haven't gone yet. But your wheelhouse, not mine. So I'm really making a statement, but it's more of a question at the same time. Are the things that we can be doing to kind of target harden ourselves so we eliminate or significantly eliminate the possibility of being a victim? And the reason I say that is these rates are going out of control and insurance companies no longer want to provide that coverage because it's gotten to be a lucrative business for criminals. So how do we get in a position where we target harden ourselves, number one, and I know you have already, but number two, just simply don't pay them. So if we were to get hacked and they take all of our data, we're like, haha, we have it anyway, we backed it up yesterday.
Yeah,
You know, we're not paying you a dime.
So
But we gotta run the criminals out of business.
So from a Klamath County perspective, I can answer this on two different levels. From a Klamath County perspective, we have taken the steps to really harden ourselves, and that's been something that's been my mission and goal since I became the director. With saying that though, we kind of, as you guys know, run on a shoestring budget for cyber stuff. And so I try to put the best utilization to the money that we have as possible, and put it where we can. There are some strategies I'm going to be looking at this next fiscal year, such as different backup solutions and that kind of stuff to even air gap us more in case of an event. We are backing up very regularly, so
You briefed me on that.
but now some of that is actually jumping into backup, so I'm actually looking at changing our backup solution due to that. From a state perspective, I'm on a state cyber group. I'm actually the county chair of it, with the state and the federal government. And we're trying to look at a holistic approach from a state level of how to assist each other on cyber incidents, and also to get more education out, not only amongst the government agencies and special districts, but also amongst the public, to help really target cyber-related issues and training.
I didn't mean to get us off topic, I
No, you're
apologize, but I think that's a good conversation to have, and even taking it one step further, it might be great to just have a county pool where all 36 counties got in and we were all just self-insured together and get out of this business altogether, paid for these outrageous rates. So anyway, topic for another day.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Workspace, I came before you, I don't know, 2 months ago and asked for some money, $850 or $900, to have a company come over and give me a quote for a remodel. And so they did that. They came and measured and did everything and submitted a plan, and the finance staff didn't like either one of the plans that they submitted, and it was pretty expensive. It was about $68,000.
Cool.
So I've asked him if he could use our existing cubicle walls, make them taller, and then have like a sliding side, like a sliding door. And he said he'd be happy to for an additional 4 hours. So that's where we're at. He spent eight hours, so it was $800 or $900, and he needs another 4 hours to do any more plans. So I'm here because I don't have to sign anything, but it would be another $450 or so for him to do that.
What's your target for a remodel cost?
I was hoping like $25,000 or less. I know that's not realistic, but and we just need to, we need some different. We just need to clean up the junk around
What can
our
Glenn and
office.
his staff just do? Have you asked?
I've gone down that road before and nothing. When finance moved up there from the tax area down there, we ordered furniture that doesn't match the rest of the building's furniture. It was from a different company and everything. So there's really nothing that can be added to create more privacy in the cubicles up there.
Okay.
So.
Thoughts? You need $400.
Yeah, just sure.
And I think I have room in my budget, but I'm kind of tight this year because I had,
Buy less envelopes.
well, I had,
Just kidding.
extra 10,000 to the auditors, and
Yeah,
I had
that's
some stuff that.
If the budget can't afford it, our company will write you a check. So just make it happen.
Okay, we'll see what they can do, and I don't know if we're gonna
I'm
do
more
it.
than happy to donate $400.
Well, since I asked the first time, I felt like I should ask this time for it.
Thank you.
Okay, and you want to talk about budgeting positions?
There at the end. Yeah, we can do that real quick if you want, since you're here, and Amanda, you want to come up too. So I added this on because I just want to have a discussion as a board real quick.
Where are you going on this agenda?
Oh, the very end, 7.5.
Oh, got it.
Reclassifications and new positions discussion. So the board has been seeing a lot of reclasses. It seems like every week. HR is processing a ton of reclassifications, new positions. Every time they do that, they're doing salary surveys and work. And I was thinking, plus when they come to us, one of my biggest beefs when they come to us is we look at it in the present budget year that the department has the money in their budget. Usually that's maybe some increased revenues. It could be the fact that they have some vacancies that are paying for it, but those are budgeted vacancies that are still going to be budgeted for the next year. So we're really not seeing it in the context of what is the financial impact, not on this budget year, but in next budget year. And then when we get to the next budget cycle, we're trying to figure out how to balance our budget. And we're seeing them constantly. So this is my thought of let's look at these things less often. Let's look at them once a year. Let's look at them through the budget workshop process. Let's have departments bring their reclassification requests or new position requests to the budget workshops. We can approve them or not then, based on the personnel spreadsheets, what we see is affordable, what's not affordable, and then we can be done for the year. And then the next year, we'll see them again. The only thing that, well, there was one that I figured we would see throughout the year that wouldn't fit into that, and then Amanda brought up another one when I brought this idea to her. One was if somebody's in the process of hiring someone and through negotiations needs to hire them at higher than a step 3, that's different, right? So if they have to come to the board if it's higher than a step 3, if it's 4, 5, 6, 7. So those would still have to come to the board. Amanda also said, what if it's in response to some type of an emergency? I'm like, well, if there's a declaration of emergency, then it's going to be more board initiated anyway. Like if there was another pandemic or this and that, we were trying to bring in positions to respond. So anyway, I wanted to have that discussion because I believe we're not looking at these as in a future budget context, and 2, we're looking at them way too often, and it's creating way too much work in HR. So thoughts from the board or from staff?
What about a scenario where a department head has something come through, like for instance, in my office, I had all those grants just all of a sudden come through. This before Natalie was here.
Mhm.
And you have, let's say just something like that happens and you have to really revise job descriptions. I mean, tear one apart, throw different things at it. Would that be an exception to the once a year thing? Because that's a long time to wait if you have
How often is that
major
actually?
changes.
How often is that really happening, though? Or is it just that we're reacting?
I think it's occasional.
Constantly reacting. We're being more reactive instead of planning.
I think it's occasional, but I don't think it's going to fit into a timeline of it being done at the end of February every year. I think though sometimes that kind of stuff's just going to show up.
I have a question, and then maybe I'll give you my thoughts. But my question is, so going back a few years, when the county did class and comp, and you guys have explained to me why some departments were done, not all. So that's not my question again. But before that process took place, did you commissioners see these class and comps all the time like that?
We're seeing them more often now than we ever have.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I mean,
It just seems like every time we turn around, there's
well, I think it was always like that. I mean,
not this.
yeah, I mean, I think there has been, and I think that might be market reflective.
But are we going to be market reflective once a week or once a year?
Well,
You know what I mean?
So here's my thought on it. I think, well, did you get a chance to finish your thought?
Go ahead.
Okay,
'Cause
so, yeah, I didn't mean to
but let me
interrupt you,
hear
but,
you.
so my thought is that I can appreciate what you're saying about that we are seeing a lot of those. And I think that, but for me, rather than moving to a sort of an arbitrary once a year or making it budget dependent, I mean, I don't think that's correct either, because I don't think it is correct that it should be budget dependent. We should be, our positions should be thoughtful, they should be worded correctly, they should be dialed in, and they should be paid the right amount, period.
No disagreement with that.
And if it's, and so I don't think we have a good system in place, even though I know what we efforted. We efforted, hey, after comp and class, let's have a very stringent process for why we're reclassing something, and it needs to meet all these qualifications. And I ping Amanda every time she brings one, and I say, like, is this following our process? And I trust Amanda implicitly, and she shares with me it does. But now I'm thinking we need to change our process again, because we are having too many that come through that. So we're doing, I agree with you, we're doing something wrong in, I shouldn't use the word wrong, that's too strong. I think we could do it better to where we're not having them every week, or every month. But I don't think it's because we should make it budget dependent because to me, again, I don't think that's right, because it shouldn't matter. We should be able to figure out what the cost is and figure out a way to pay for it if we decide it's something we really want. And so I think we need a better process for
for how we classify things, where we add new positions, that's more thoughtful. Maybe it comes out of the strategic planning process, but I think we need to do a better job of dialing it in, rather than, I do think we've sort of opened these floodgates of everything feeling like it needs to be reclassed. I don't think that's correct either. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, so
I'll say just three things. Number one,
just three.
just three things. Number one, strategic plan needs to be done.
Mhm.
Number two, we need to reorganize this county based upon that strategic plan and a forward look. And number three, we need to do an entire countywide class and comp again. Those three things should all occur in the next 12 to 18 months. And then I think that gives us a lot of answers moving forward. But I feel like we have these big things coming up that we want to do. We have these big heavy lifts coming up that we want to do, and we will do. We're all committed to get them done. But in the meantime, there's a lot of jockeying before that occurs, and I really think that we need to finish our strategic plan. We need to finish our reorganization based upon that strategic plan, and then we need to do a countywide class and comp that includes every position we have after we've reorged.
I thought they did every position.
They did. They looked at every position.
Okay.
And then we just implemented the ones that they said, like, if this is all that you do, this is what you should do.
We implemented
So,
what we could
yeah,
afford,
and
but
so
now we're implementing
to
everything
your
anyway.
3 points, Commissioner, I agree. I'm looking forward to doing the strategic plan. I think that will help. I think figuring out exactly sort of what we want to be. I don't know if I think that's going to dramatically change the look of county employment. I don't know. I will tell you, I have a trauma-based response to the idea of doing comp and class again. I don't know if I can handle it. It was
Well, we
kind of a disaster.
When I worked for the city and we did class comp, we hired a firm to come in and do it. And they did an outstanding job, and I thought it was painless.
Yeah,
It was
I
the
mean, we
same
hired an
company,
outside
wasn't it?
firm and it was not painless.
I'm not sure if
It was super painful because it felt like it was never going to be over. And again, I mean, we're still talking about it. It just, I don't know if we're too diverse and such an unwieldy, diverse structure and it's too hard. I don't know what the answer is, but
I've heard some things come up like we need more steps, so there's future growth, and that's all part of that class and comp. And I feel like just since I've been here since May, I've lost count of the number of these I've looked at.
And I guess my biggest thing, and what I want to bring back, is we keep looking at these without truly understanding the budget impact. Because we're not looking at the entire budget while we're doing it.
Or what we're trying to do, or who we're trying to
it's-
be.
Yes, and year over year over year. So quite frankly, as I understand it, seeing those through the budget workshops is currently something that we've said don't do, when it, to me, makes the most sense of what we should do. So I definitely think that it should be allowed to be done through the budget process,
I don't think it should be done.
in workshops.
Okay. Yeah. I don't want.
Doesn't
I
need to
don't
be done
want-
there, but it can be done in workshops in here with just this board and not the full budget committee, and that's where I'm talking.
Yeah, I don't want to budget new thing. I don't want to budget anything new that hasn't been approved because that will get buried and you'll never see the change.
Right. No, so when during budget workshops, when every department comes to us, what I'm proposing is that when we see the personnel spreadsheets, that it shows current and proposed, so that we can see the proposed, and then we can also see the budget impact and how it impacts not just the budget in that department, but the overall county budget. Because everything, we're one company.
The new software we have has a way to let the department heads request positions. The other thing that I'm not 100% sure on that we talked about last week was Public Works wants to add 2 utility workers to their roster. So let's say they have 10 now, they want 12. And I thought they wanted to just put that in their budget. So Amanda said that's fine, they don't have to have approval for that, but it's still 2 new positions that they don't currently, I mean, they have the position utility worker 1, but they want 2 extra bodies. How do you feel about that, just getting put in their budget?
I believe it should come to budget workshops.
That's what I think too. I don't think they
Yeah,
should be
so,
able to
like,
just add
It
it.
doesn't have to come to an admin meeting.
Right,
Because it's
there's
a
no
position.
difference in doing it in admin meeting, in this room, in this context, or doing it during budget workshops, with the exception of we get to see the whole budget. And we get to see that impact on the overall budget when we're adding these people.
Okay, I might have misunderstood. I thought you meant just because it's a position we already have, they didn't have to get
Oh,
permission.
no,
to put
I
it
just
in.
meant like that I don't have to take a request to an admin meeting
Okay.
on behalf of them, cause it's a position that already exists, they just wanna increase their FTE.
We do a deep dive during budget workshops, this board, into everybody's budget. It's a great time to be talking, asking the board about reclassifying positions or adding new positions. That's a great time to do it, my opinion. And I know I nerd out on the numbers, and that's okay, but I freak out about the budget all the time.
So I'm gonna agree with you, I think that is a good idea and it's worth trying, but I'm also concerned, and I'm kind of with Vicky on this too, there's gotta be some latitude because things change. And once a year doesn't feel appropriate either. I'm just trying to think, you have a new department director that we hire, and I'm not saying anybody's leaving, but let's say, we get a new department director and they come in and do a fresh look at their org and go, oh man, I need to tweak some things, we're overspending or underspending or whatever. I just feel like there's gotta be some latitude.
What if we move to something perhaps biannual, so midway through the year, we could have a department request a budget review, where they have to then review their entire budget again and any requests like this. The only thing is, whenever we look at these, I want to see the whole budget.
That would kill more than one bird too, because we get into a situation where department heads aren't paying a lot of attention, and then we get in trouble at the end of the year when the budget isn't right. And
So we can do it through budget workshops in February, and then we can do a September biannual budget review for any department that either finance initiates or the department head initiates.
I'd be hypocritical if I were to say that it's not worth trying. I think we should always try new things. We either like it or we don't, but either way we learn.
I think it frees up a lot of time. It concentrates a lot of this activity in a condensed period. It frees up a lot of time for this board. It frees up a lot of time, I believe, for HR, and correct me if I'm wrong, and probably finance as well.
I would still like to request though that if a department's going to propose a new position, they still run it through HR so we could do the salary survey and tell them this is where we think it should be classified before they come to you with their request for the budget.
I think
Sure,
that's
that's fine.
appropriate, but then that is all part of either the budget workshops or the biannual review that we'll do in September.
And I'm somewhat comfortable with this direction. I do feel strongly though still that's getting a little bit at sort of, we do things so long as we have the money, and I don't know if I feel like that should be our mantra. I think our mantra should be, we strive to do the absolute best, most effective, correct thing, and then we sort of figure out the money piece. So my request would be that, and we can still, like, as a practice, a lot of this is sort of the intention you put into the act. The act might still be the same. So the act might still be like you're saying, we do it twice a year, but I want the intention that we're putting into it, or the thought behind it, of we are having, again, very thoughtful ways that we justify things, because what I do not like, there's two things I don't like. Well, I mean, actually, there's a million things I don't like, but in this context,
I'm
there's
just
two
not
things
one
I
of
don't like. Your shoes are not one of them. I like your shoes. Your shoes are cool.
Is that a motion? I second.
Yeah. Derek's shoes are cool. What I don't like are two things that I see happening a lot. One is that that it is sort of this just rallying, like, this person, I think this person does a good job, and therefore they should be paid more. That's not really the right justification, because I think, maybe the guy who mows my lawn does a great job, but that doesn't mean, I don't have anyone who mows my lawn, but that doesn't mean, I need to necessarily pay them more if that's what the market requests of that job, if that makes sense. The other thing, this is the one I really, really don't like. I really don't like the, making up a name, Joe down in, the cat department, again, making up because I don't want to act like I'm talking about anyone. Joe down in cats is mad that Susie up in dogs gets whatever. And so, Joe thinks down in cats they do better than what they do in the dog department. And so that, I don't like that either. So I want,
I don't disagree with that.
I want a more thoughtful way that we justify. And then I also want HR to be keeping track of, there is some, we have been dinged on it in the past of why does a nurse over here make more than a nurse over there? And so somehow, and why does a manager here make more than a director over there? And that's a very hard thing for HR to navigate because we are such a diverse entity. You're hard pressed to find places that do as many different things as we do with as many different qualifications and different skill levels and blah, 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 blah. But it is hard to make it fair. And one of the most important things to me is that things are fair.
I will not disagree with the words you said, but I will add one more.
Please.
I want department directors looking for ways to be more efficient, and efficiency doesn't just mean more staff. How do you streamline work? Technology, new processes, new philosophies, new mindsets, but all too often the answer in this county is I just need more people, and I don't think that's appropriate either.
Cool. All right, so I think that we have something that we want to try, and so we're going to start next month, right? Workshop's already scheduled for sometime in February, I believe.
The end, the
end
last
of-
week.
Perfect. So then, because they're on the agenda, there are 2 reclassifications on the agenda today. I don't know the board's appetite to look at these today or look at these in workshops next month. And I will tell you it's my preference to look at everything next month in workshops, but I'm one member of this board and these are on the agenda.
I would be, I have comfort around going ahead with these 2. I know there's at least one Amanda and I had talked about for next week. I feel like I would say the 3 are already in my mind sort of in the process / pipeline, and I would be okay with going ahead with those and then having this sort of fresh start in February. And I'm also only one of 3.
So.
I'm okay with hearing it, but as long as everybody understands, I will likely punt on any decisions till next month.
So, and I'm going to, I'll vote no on anything today because I want to see them in the context of the budget. So,
And I was planning to vote yes on both of these.
I would vote no today too and punt till next month.
so then why, instead of we getting a motion on the table, why don't we punt these 2 budget workshops? and
Are you
direct-
saying a motion or emotion?
Okay, that takes care of that. Next on the agenda, Mr. Rick Vaughn, property donation to Walker Range Fire Patrol Associates.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Rick Vaughn, Klamath County Tax Collector Property Manager. This is actually one that fell through the cracks.
Yes, there's one that I recall.
Came back to me when you were speaking with the Walker Range folks through the ARPA presentations. And what we had, you 2 will probably recall, but for Commissioner Hensley, I'll show. Klamath County owns a piece of property along Highway 97 right here that was taken in foreclosure. This is Walker Range, and this property, and there was another one down here behind those that relied on these access points. And Klamath County I had made a presentation to the commissioners at that time to donate this piece of property to Walker Range. They needed additional equipment space. They wanted to put up another shop and shed and those things. And they, of course, justified it by the work they do for the county and the state police and others, and they're a great partner up there. But we held up on this due to the concerns of these folks in the back and their access issues. So we stopped. And we'd had the conversation, and I believe at the time we were in full agreement to donate to Walker Range, but we stopped.
How big is it? About?
10 acres?
Yeah, I want to say 12, but
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Yes.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's just a chunk of all lodgepole. So if this doesn't exist, this easement here. There's actually, if you come down, there's an old road that ran back into this property that isn't actually an easement, but long story short, they've all come to agreement on how to access the properties and adjust their easement records appropriately. So we had, with those folks, remedied their concerns, and they've since, he wanted to get that remedied so he could sell the property, and he has. That was Mr. Sanders was the gentleman. And so that got resolved, it got sold, but we never came back to this piece. So it's still sitting as a Klamath County piece, and we didn't get it to Walker. I spoke to R.D. Buell last week. He was just kind of waiting on us. And really the only item was Walker Range was to compensate the county for the costs involved of the process, which is like $700, and they have no problem with that. It's just, it would need your agreement to bring it back up and resurrect the process and finish it.
I'm 100% supportive.
And I'm gonna do whatever the two of you want, because I was not a part of that conversation.
I say let's put it through the process. I'm sure it has to end up in a business meeting for the donation.
Ken?
Does it, or does it have to?
We haven't before. I mean, when it's
It's
when
just a
it's
property transfer, right? You're just basically doing a quick claim deed.
Yep.
Shouldn't we do it anyway, even if you did it as a prior approved, just so it's at a business meeting?
Yeah.
We can. That's no problem.
Let's just add it as a prior approved. That way it, because we'll vote on it now. Let's add it as a prior approved so that it makes it to the commissioner's log and yada, yada, yada.
Okay.
But I'll make a motion that we transfer the subject property to Walker Range as a donation, with Walker Range paying any associated costs of the donation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions, comments, discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Approval of the AAC amended bylaws. So there's amended bylaws for the Administrative Advisory Committee. That one bylaw revision that has been proposed is within the bylaws. It sets a very specific date and time on when that committee is supposed to be meeting. The proposal is that it changes to an as-needed basis instead of a time certain, because they were having trouble getting attendance with it being so rigid. So I would make a motion to approve the amended bylaws as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Pump track funding, and Dr. Miles is here to assist us with this. Commissioner Hensley, you may recall, Commissioner Minty, this will be a little bit new for you. During the ARPA grant process, a proposal came in front of the board that would put a pump track, kind of like this trail system that's up and down, next to what is now called Eulona, formerly Kit Carson Park. And it really got my attention. It wasn't one that we could, that it wasn't one that made it through the selection process of the ARPA grant committee. However, what caught my attention was that we are building trail systems throughout the county right now, whether it's on Spence, the city doing more park, and others, people doing things on Hagglestein. none of the trail systems that we are putting in right now are really conducive to people with disabilities. This would be something that was, so it really got my attention. So I had asked Miles to come to this meeting, and I asked for it to be put on the agenda so that we could discuss, because I know that there's some resources within the DD department that could potentially be donated to this project. As just information-wise, the request from the organization that was putting in the pump track was $500,000. I don't know if we can do that, but maybe turn it over to Miles, tell us what we can do, his thoughts on the project, what kind of funding is available potentially for this project.
So Dr. Miles Maxey, Director for Developmental Disability Services. So where these funds come from is we sold a KIP home, which is a community integration program. When Fairview Institution closed in the early 2000s, the state allocated a large amount of money to homes throughout the state to serve as homes for individuals who experience intellectual and developmental disabilities. Over time, the counties paid those off in agreements. We sold the last KIP home that we had. We had 3 here. 2 of them now reside with other county departments. The last one we sold in late 2020. So the money from those is sitting in our reserve funds, which currently sits at about $250,000, that we've wanted to allocate that money to helping the community, whether that's been through sponsorships of programs, that's been through we sponsored or part of the Moore Park redesign, we purchased a piece of equipment as part of that. We really want to make the community more accessible across the county. This is a project that was started prior to me. It's something I'm very passionate about on a personal level and even on a professional level. And so when I heard about the pump track, when the BOCC staff reached out to me, I went and listened to their presentation. I think it's a really great thing, and something I definitely want to get behind, but also want to continue to utilize that money for other resources in the community to reach out to parks in other parts of the county to help those be accessible. And so my proposal is $40,000 to contribute to that, that then we can utilize similar. We donated 12 to the Moore Park project, but certainly I'm open to conversation and thoughts.
I think it's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, and like I said, I wasn't there, so I go with your guys' feedback on that.
The proposal got me very excited just because, again, we're doing a lot of this development, but we're doing that development in not an entirely inclusive way, leaving out people with physical disabilities, and this would be a lot more inclusive of that population.
Well, yeah, let's
So I'm going to be appreciate your recommended amount. I was pretty inspired by the projects. I would give them more, but 40,000, I'm not my hill to die on.
My initial thought was 10% of their project, $50,000. So you and I were super close.
And I'm good with going to 50.
Yeah,
I'll make a
actually
motion.
where I
We
was
donate
thinking too.
$50,000 to the pump track funding project
Yeah, I was right.
from
with
developmental
that.
disabilities.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Dr. Maxey, I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you bringing this to my attention.
Yep. Chair votes aye, motion passes. Got that, Finance?
Who's gonna do the agreement?
Do you want to work with Sandy and Haley on the agreement? Okay, thank you very
Matt
much.
needs to go through a business meeting, correct?
Please.
And then if they need support, can you help them? Thank you. Next one on the agenda also stems from, actually the next two both stem from the ARPA meeting The next one is a consideration of a reallocation of some building permit program funds to the Klamath Housing Authority. This is a project that has been in front of the full board before, so you probably remember it. Diana Otero from the Klamath Housing Authority had made a presentation. Based on the property out on Homedale Road where they've done some affordable housing construction. There's another project that is coming to Klamath. They've received their state funding. Currently, the location for that project that has been selected is at Timber Mill Shores. There is conversation about moving that project from that, which is maybe not necessarily the most the best use of that lit property, being some of the best property in our community, and instead putting it out as well in off of Homedale. In order to do that, one of the issues that we've seen with that property, you may recall when you were at the city, but you may recall because it's come to us in this meeting before, is a lift station in order to access the back piece of that property. This would also not only benefit that particular project, which is 72 housing units, but also make the remainder of that land developable. But the lift station costs $500,000 and it's cost prohibitive. It was my idea to, and just looking at current rates, the $2 million that we sent to the building department for reduction in permits is based on current allocations. It's not likely that we'll see all of that go towards those discounts. It's just not being spent down that fast, my opinion. And I think that housing starts are actually starting to slow based on interest rates. So redirecting $500,000 of that $2 million towards this project, with the caveat that the particular project that was presented to us during the meeting would be relocated to that property. If they don't locate that property, they don't, or project, they don't get the money. So that's my idea. Thoughts from the board?
Well, that's one. I would have to know a lot more about it. I would have to know a lot more about the lift station, about the, sort of who will benefit and how, about other potential ways that this access to funding they may have. So I would not be prepared to vote affirmatively today, and I'm only one.
I think it's a good idea, and I would likely support it with more information as well.
Okay.
I like what Commissioner Minty said, and here's what I'd like to know. Number one, that is city property, so that is going to be a city asset. So does the city have any funds to help us with that project? Do they have any ARPA dollars left? Do they have money, tucked away in some savings account? I don't know what that looks like, but if the city wanted to partner with us, I would think that's awesome.
Okay.
As far as moving that housing development to Homedale, I think is a wonderful idea. I am 100% behind that idea. I also recognize that lift station is going to enhance further building and further expansion, which I fully support, but again, it's in the city. So I'm okay with supporting that concept with the caveat that it must be done. We're not gonna build a lift station and have no homes, right?
No, that project would
That
have to be done.
project has to be done for us to fund it, so we'd have to have a solid agreement with them. But the piece about the city helping us do that, I would like to know before I committed. But the concept, I'm totally behind.
Okay, so your question is whether or not the city would participate. What additional
Mine
information
is
can I
also
give you?
just having some understanding around who all will benefit, and that's also
So all of the
like which
land,
developers, who's,
Yeah.
and did they apply, and because I could see, let's say I'm a developer in North County, and I'm like, I didn't have the opportunity to be part of that. Why does, X
Right.
big shot in Klamath get that opportunity?
so the The applicant for in the grant cycle was the housing authority. The land all belongs to the housing authority. The beneficiary becomes the Klamath Housing Authority.
Who's doing the work?
I don't know the name of the developer that's doing the work.
I'm not sure she said, I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't recall, I could look at my notes.
Again, I would want to make sure, I would have some fairness questions, and I share Commissioner Hensley's thought about it being a city asset and how are they contributing.
All I wrote down in my notes, I wrote down a lot, but as far as the building, all I wrote down was they would build 68 homes and 72 affordable rental units on top of that.
The 68 homes would be the housing authority building them. The 72 units would
Would
be
be the
a
additional
partnership.
piece.
They would partner with the
They would-
developer.
Right.
So we're talking
You do math better than I do.
140 units.
Thank you.
So who's their partner
140 units.
on the 72?
Don't know.
I forget the name of and it's, I've been told before, but they receive, it's all low-income state-funded housing. They received the dollars, it's some millions of dollars from the state to build housing. So, but I will get an answer to both of those questions.
But I can get behind the concept really easily.
I'll get the answer to both of those
Building 140
questions.
homes, yeah, that'd be great.
All directed towards lower income. Next on the agenda is the senior center funding request, and I believe Commissioner Hensley, you
Yeah.
asked for this one to be on.
I brought this up and Vicki, if you don't mind, I wouldn't mind you being at the table. So I'll probably have some questions for you. I don't know how to go about this at all. I'm just gonna throw some ideas out and see what the appetite looks like in the room, and I don't know where the money comes from, nothing. But another proposal, we heard two proposals from Mark Kane with the Klamath County Senior Center. And some things stuck with me about from his presentation that I wanna share with you. Number one, that's a county asset, it's a county building. And he talked about the number of events they have there every month and shared with us a calendar of their events. And I'm not looking at it right now, but I think there was nearly something every day. And the number of people that come to the senior center and participate in activities through the senior center were in the thousands every year. And I thought about the number of people that are positively impacted by a building that we own. Mattered to me, meant a lot to me. And some of the other things that he talked about were that facility has the capability to be an evacuation center if need be. And I think about the fires that we've had and using the fairgrounds as a large animal rescue facility and how could we partner so if people needed a place to stay while they were taking care of their livestock, they could use the senior center as an evacuation center. That kind of stuck with me. Those were my thoughts, not his, but when he talked about it being the potential for an evacuation center, my mind went further. He also talked about the fact that there are 78,000 meals served through the senior center annually. And I thought of the number of people that are fed through the senior center and that positive benefit and impact that senior center has in regards to meals for people, and that stuck with me. And then the fact that they don't have a backup generator, so if something were to happen and they lose power, how much waste we would have. Number one, it couldn't be an evacuation center without a backup generator. Number two, the food that they keep on hand, I think he told me they had a month worth of food, was that right, Commissioner? Or a couple of weeks worth of food on hand that would be ruined, and how do you back that up? How do you go out and scramble for 2 weeks worth of food if you lose it? So some of those things kind of stuck with me. And then the other thing that he talked about was the lack of ADA accessibility to that building for a senior center. And that really hit home to me as well. So I wanted to have a conversation with you guys about one of his asks to do the front entrance was $135,000. The generator was $259,000. So that's a significant amount of money. And I don't know how to pay for that, but all of the things he said in his presentation really moved me and really hit close to home in that that is our asset that I feel like we should be doing a better job taking care of when it impacts thousands of people annually.
This just came off the top of my head because you were talking about what if this happens, what if the generator, and Leslie's probably listening, like, stop talking about risk all the time. But I mean, is there a little money in, like, some risk management money that we could maybe put that way? Because I agree with you, Commissioner Hensley. It is it's a county asset, and even more important than the physical, calling it a county asset, are seniors. I mean, they are our elders, and they are a community asset.
Good point.
Natalie, can you help with my question? How much do we have left in unallocated ARPA funds?
So I prepared a little
I
sheet for you.
I should have said, Natalie, come to the table.
You really are awesome.
Thank you.
Look at that.
Natalie Parker, Klamath County Grant Manager, and we have just under $200,000 left in the bucket.
So it'll make Natalie very nervous, but I don't have a problem being done with ARPA money.
Can I say one quick thing?
Mhm.
The senior center does have, did receive $60,000 in the first ARPA grant cycle, and they've had a hard time utilizing it for the purpose that you had intended it to be used for because building prices went up so drastically. Is there a potential that we could have a conversation with him about maybe broadening some of the use of those dollars to maybe piggyback on these other, maybe have him create a priority list or have the board create a priority list for those?
Do you have, I didn't bring it, I should have, I'm not prepared, I apologize. Do you have his presentation that itemized all of that out?
I have it in my office.
I have it in my office too. So you may have it close?
I don't.
Because I feel that we can do that today because what he just presented us was an itemized list. It was pretty much a menu.
Right, the entrance was priority one
Mhm.
and generator was priority two for him.
Correct.
And I know they have spent a little bit of that 60,000, maybe not even $10,000 of it, so they probably have about around 50,000, I'm guessing.
Right. So you're
Left.
right, I wrote his number one was entrance and number two was generator. And then of the entrance, it was actually 295,000. But then he said, or 135 would really do this. So
Right.
he broke it down even further.
Sees, one or two.
I believe it's two.
The fact that you have this is just cracking me up.
So
Trying
this
to
will
be a
just make
show
me
off.
feel better to say this. Because I really don't think it's fair or correct to then sort of go after the committee and do more community projects. But I think what you make the argument that this is a county facility, and so I think that if we were to fund this, it could be considered in my mind a county project because it's on a county building.
But to your point, Commissioner, something that I want to point out. All three of these, so after we were done with the allocations, all three of these presentations that we discussed today, the pump track, the reallocation to do the Housing Authority and the Senior Center, we discussed at the end of the meeting with the full committee, and basically the exact same conversation today, and it was unanimously supported by the committee that these be addressed by this body. So they were well informed that we were going to be having this conversation today, and they voted unanimously to support us working on these projects. I think I missed that part earlier, so I apologize. That would have been good information for you to have.
demolition to the dining room bathrooms. So he does have a transportation van in here for $85,000. This is stuff he's already done? Oh, where's?
He's got a
There's
piece
the-
in there about the entrance.
Yeah, there's 165.
Install a lift to the upstairs.
Oh, right here.
Who has the senior center right now?
I think you do.
Must be a
Can we go up? This doesn't look like what he gave us.
Did you do that to me?
Oh, wait.
They're
Doesn't
pretty
look like what he gave us.
Yes, they are.
What if he gave us a different? Did he bring us the info and pass it out? He did, because he gave us the newspaper.
Yeah, you know what?
Will you grab it?
Thank you.
I hate to mention this because Molly is watching this meeting. But have we ever talked about the senior center building being added to the facility services monthly amounts and the tenant paying into that fund so that they could do some of these, our maintenance department could do some of these?
Well, I'm not the person to ask at all.
Yeah.
I'd ask Kelly.
I don't know as if we have spoke with that. I know from my time with working with maintenance last year, I don't think they want more things put on their plate,
Yeah,
but it is a county building. So.
I know they have reserves, but they've got those reserves for people that are putting money into the reserve program.
Yeah, this was it. So to here, this was the 135. Yep, these two pieces right here. Reconstruction of the two entrances to include ADA compliance entrance, one double power door with new concrete ramping and shelter structure for $75,000, and entrance two is a single door replacement with new ramping and shelter structure at $60,000 for a total of $135,000.
Yep.
That was the 135 I wrote down, which was his priority. The total was $295, but they had some income, right?
It was 55 from the board, so that's what got it to the 350. But then if we kept going, it was
that was that,
carpet
that.
and repaint the second floor,
Mhm.
carpet and repaint the main floor, and then essentially beautification of the exterior of the
Right,
building.
right, right.
Well, I guess it's the best.
So I'd make
Way
a
to put it.
motion that we fund the reconstruction of the two entrances. Entrance one for $75,000 and entrance two for $60,000. That's where I came up with the 135.
For a total of 135.
Second,
We have-
just
We have
as
a
a
motion, a second. Go ahead.
as a clarification, are you wanting that to be the full 135, or are you anticipating that they would use the 50 from last time and it would be an additional 85?
I don't know.
So if you look on page 2 of this, let's just remember, the county ARPA fund is in this. So they've raised a total of $100,000. And this was,
That was for the dining room and bathrooms.
yes.
Mhm.
But I don't know what's holding this project up, because that's not in here. And I don't recall in his presentation him letting us know what was holding up.
So I would be supportive of doing the entrances, not as a part of this project at all. And if this project doesn't happen and they're sitting on this 60,
They'll have to return it. They
either
don't use
return it
for
or
that.
reallocate it for the generator. They could ask us to reallocate that fund at some point. But looking at the community partners that have jumped on to that project that we also put 60 on, I don't know how that would not succeed.
Yeah, I'm hopeful.
I mean, they've got some heavy hitters on there that have
It says
donated money.
estimated completion by May of '23 on our grant project from the last time. So maybe it's just they finished raising the money and they're waiting on a contractor?
So maybe I'll adjust my amendment slightly. If that demo project of the dining room doesn't happen, then I would be comfortable, maybe this is emotional, I'll share my thoughts. I would be comfortable them reallocating that 60 to the entrances, and then we don't give them 135 out of the second round. It's less than that, it's just what? 75.
So just reading this, so demolition of the dining room, bathrooms, and beverage wall and replacement with newly designed floor plan. The design contracted to have a company, a subsidiary of another, design work and contracted completed. RFPs issued in January of 22, single contractor response was rejected for excessive costs, and it was rebid with part of the project awarded in June of 22, with the balance of the project to be redesigned to save cost. So with an expected start date of October of 22 at an estimated 100, which is what they have raised, estimated completion of May of 23. So I just don't know the status of that project, but it looks like it had to be completely reworked. And now it's been reworked and based on this, reworked and now moving forward. But you're right, I'm the liaison to the senior center, but we can just check with them and make sure. But I don't know how that impacts this discussion, just wanted to point that out.
So how about if I were to amend my motion and say, I move that we fund up to 135 for the entrances, for both entrances to the senior center, just an up to.
I'll second your amendment.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Right.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. So if they're still able to use that 60 on that other project, great. If not, they'll reallocate it towards this, and then we'll cover the balance with unallocated dollars up to 135. Did I summarize that correctly?
Yep.
Okay. That's the last item on our agenda. Anything else for the good of the order?
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
That was helpful.
So I wonder if we might have a, I'm not sure about this. I'm not sure, I know this will come up in our strategic planning that I know Commissioner Hensley's been working on. But I do think we need to have a really intentional facility discussion. We still have the former DD building open. You know, we have a lot of movement at Hanscom's, and Vicky's been talking to us about that. We all got the letter from the sheriff wanting, you know, some direction on the future of the sheriff's office. So again, I understand that this is going to be part of the strategic planning, super excited about it, but I also wonder if it might be worthwhile as a more immediate step to get some of those stakeholders together, and whether it's a specific hour set aside as tagged onto our normal work session or something, but just to talk like facilities.
I second that.
Have a facilities conversation?
Yeah.
And so
I
you
want
say
like sheriff, I
stakeholder.
want, I think it would be valuable to have all of us, the sheriff, some of the
Maintenance.
other folks on Vanderburg, you know, Aaron Hartman.
I love it.
Yeah.
Also include emergency management, because we're
Emergency
paying
management.
rent
Yep.
for emergency management's offices when we own empty office space.
Right.
That doesn't
Yeah,
make sense to me.
we have places where we have open resources, and then we have places where we have needs, and we gotta start figuring out where we're going with all of that.
I think it's
Good.
wonderful.
We can put that, that's really an internal discussion, so we can just add that to an admin.
Yeah, I just, like I said, I wanna make sure we get the right people around the table and that we have like a good hour to.
Sounds great to me.
Okay. Let me look at the agenda for next week's admin, and if it's fairly light, we'll just add it to it. And then we'll just, anything more can go on the following weeks. That
And
way
are we
we
gonna
allow
ask staff
plenty of
to
time.
invite people, or do we wanna invite?
We can have staff do that.
Okay.
So basically, everybody on the Hill, including emergency management.
Sounds great to
And
me.
maybe fairgrounds just for Hanscoms.
Oh, fairgrounds. Yep, fairgrounds would be a good one. OSU Extension.
Not just a school, they pay rent as well. That's
Yeah, but they, all of their facilities have to be outside the UGB.
Yeah, I feel like we did
So we
wanna
don't
get
have
them in.
We don't have anything for them. So I'm just gonna write the list. So sheriff, well, basically
the whole bill.
Vandenberg.
Yeah.
Emergency management, fairgrounds,
OSU.
OSU.
Do we
Maintenance.
Oh, you said OSU. You said it, and that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
So maintenance, obviously, because they have to take care of all
Rick.
this stuff. Rick. Anybody else? I'll make sure we have at least an hour
At least.
to have that conversation. Yeah, I mean, because that's a big conversation. It's a lot of people, so at least an hour. So let me look at the rest of the
Yeah,
agenda. Make
because
sure
that,
that we're
that
gonna be okay.
conversation needs to talk about today's needs, but also future needs.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanna dive into sheriff's office substations and outlying communities. I mean, that's a big conversation.
Well, yeah, and there's the SAR, you know,
Yep.
the SAR
Okay.
compound.
The sheriff doesn't have a shop to work on cars. I mean, we have some big needs.
Wonderful.
Okay.
We'll set that aside. I'll get that done. Mr. Quitwin, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. We are adjourned at 2:10,
Good
11,
idea, Kelly.
whatever it is.
It's all.
All right. And meeting.